The comic book called Lookism circles around a young boy named Park Hyung-suk, a fat boy who is always getting bullied. His life changed when he fell asleep and suddenly woke up in a different body, the body of a young, tall, handsome boy. Two students are smoking inside the school restroom. The guy named Logan turned to look at Hyung-suk and demanded that he make the sound of a monkey. Hyung-suk did so in fear of getting beaten up once again. This went on for the whole day until Hyung-suk went home. At home, Hyung-suk asked his mother if he could transfer to another school, but his mom said no, as it was hard for her to find a job and save up money. Saddened by this, Hyung-suk lashed out at his mom and hid inside his room. Crying in guilt after realizing how wrong he was to vent his anger on his mother. The next day, Hyung-suk's mom went to his school to ask if it was possible for him to transfer. Meanwhile, Hyung-suk was in the field, getting used as a target by his bullies, who were kicking a ball in his direction. Hyung-suk's main bully, Logan, was betting against Mae Kim, a soccer player at the school. Whoever hits Hyung-suk first wins. Hyung-suk was able to dodge all of Logan's attacks but got hit immediately by Mae Kim's. This angered Logan, who assumed that Hyung-suk was doing it on purpose. Afraid for himself, Hyung-suk tried to deny it, but it only fueled the fire. Logan started slapping Hyung-suk's face continuously until they were stopped by Hyung-suk's mom, who was furious at the scene. She defended Hyung-suk from Logan, but Hyung-suk only got scared even more because of this, knowing that Logan would take revenge for this. So, in instinct, Hyung-suk yelled at his mother to stop, humiliating her in front of his schoolmates. When they got back home, Hyung-suk apologized to his mom. His mom then told him that he could transfer, making him feel happy for a new beginning. In the next scenes, Hyung-suk moved to a different city, where he was going to live in an old shack. After settling in, he went to get a new haircut. He then walked around Hongdae after getting a new haircut, still reeling from the happiness he was feeling. When he saw his reflection in a shop's window, Hyung-suk was shocked to see him looking like a tough guy. He started making expressions with his face when he noticed that a beautiful girl was looking at him weirdly. He got shy and attempted to talk to the girl, but a tall guy named Zach appeared and tried to pick a fight with Hyung-suk, mad that he was trying to flirt with his date. The girl told Zach to stop and pulled him away, mouthing an apology to Hyung-suk. But Hyung-suk thought it the wrong way. He assumed that the girl was flirting with him and that Zach was just pretending to be tough in front of his date, but he is actually afraid of Hyung-suk. Hyung-suk ran after the couple and greeted them. But seeing him again, Zach then punched Hyung-suk, who realized that his assumptions were wrong. The crowd took a video of the one-sided fight and posted it online, where it spread quickly. When he was back at his old shack, Hyung-suk watched the video of him getting beaten up with tears streaming down his face. That was the time when he realized that moving to a different city and transferring schools didn't change the fact that he's a fat guy who is always the target of bullying. Hyung-suk cried himself to sleep, and when he woke up, he went to the bathroom, feeling much lighter. But Hyung-suk felt the biggest shock of his life when he saw his reflection in the mirror. What used to be a small, fat guy wearing eyeglasses is now a tall, handsome boy. Hyung-suk couldn't believe his eyes. He went back to the living room and was even more shocked to see himself sleeping. He didn't know what was happening. His original fat body was sleeping on the floor, but he's awake and in a different body. Hyung-suk then tried waking up his fat body, but he lost consciousness, and when he woke up, he was back in his fat body. He thought for a second that what happened was just a dream, but he looked beside him and saw the body of the handsome boy sleeping. He shook the handsome boy awake, and he lost consciousness again. When he woke up, he was back in the handsome boy's body. Hyung-suk realized what was happening, and for the whole night, he kept on doing the same thing. After coming to terms with the situation, Hyung-suk then planned his two bodies' sleep schedule to make sure that both bodies were still healthy and sleeping well. From 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., the handsome body would be awake and would be the one Hyung-suk would use to go to school. And from 8 p.m. until 8 a.m., his original fat body would be awake, working at night. The next day, Hyung-suk went to his new school as the handsome boy called Daniel. Everyone was in awe of seeing such a handsome guy like Daniel. Daniel went to his classroom and was introduced to the class, who all had their jaws dropped after seeing him. He then took a seat beside a guy, flashing a wide smile in hopes of becoming friends with his new seatmate, but was shocked when he saw Zach. Of course, Zach did not recognize him, but Daniel was still nervous. Zach, who was watching the new student, looked back and saw Mira, the girl he was on a date with, looking at Daniel with a blush on her cheeks. Zach knew right then and there that he hated the new guy. Just then, a girl stood up from her seat and took off the blanket that was wrapped around her waist, revealing her short skirt and surprising Daniel. She then approached Daniel and introduced herself as Zoe Park. Hushed murmurs started going around, as Zoe Park is notorious for always preying on good-looking guys. Zoe began her flirtations with Daniel, who blushed as it was the first time a girl had ever flirted with him. After class, Daniel went to the cafeteria for lunch and was so happy that he only had to get his own food and not serve others, ignoring Zoe, who kept on following him around. While eating, a group of big and tough-looking guys approached him and invited him for a talk after lunch. They took him to a secluded part of the school, and Daniel was scared as the situation was too familiar to him. And just as Daniel thought he was going to get bullied, one of the guys offered him a cigarette while asking him if he could introduce them to girls. Daniel doesn't smoke, but he doesn't want to seem like a wuss either. So, he just made the excuse that he quit smoking and that he doesn't know any girls. Which is actually true, as the only woman he knows in his life is his mother. The group thought that Daniel was just being conceited as they watched him leave. Daniel went back to class, where he fell asleep on his desk. Hyung-suk's body woke up, and seeing this, he panicked and tried to fall asleep again. Luckily for him, Zoe, who was watching Daniel sleep, woke him up in hopes of talking to him. After school, he went to a convenience store to apply as a cashier. The manager wanted to hire Daniel because he is good-looking, but Daniel didn't want to apply because he wanted his Hyung-suk body to be the one to work at night. So, at night, Hyung-suk started working at the convenience store. On the first night he worked, Hyung-suk was immediately targeted by a group of underage goons who were trying to buy smoke and alcohol. When Zach entered the store, he was initially stopping his friends, but when he realized that the cashier was Hyung-suk, the fatty who was flirting with Mira, he immediately changed his mind and beat up Hyung-suk again. Zach's friends told Hyung-suk to drop his pants, and they took a picture of him with a swollen face and lower part exposed. After getting beaten up, Hyung-suk called his mom, pretending to be okay and not realizing that just like him, his mother was also just pretending to be okay when in reality, she was out late at night collecting cardboard boxes. The next day, he went to school as Daniel. When he arrived in class, he saw Zach and his friends talking about what happened last night. Daniel ignored it, despite knowing that they were making fun of his Hyung-suk body. Zach kept on gloating, thinking that it would impress Mira and scare Daniel. But Mira just hated the fact that Zach kept on fighting with just anyone, and her friend told her about Zach being a popular rising boxer in middle school. Just then, Zach's group started talking about Hyung-suk's mother and making fun of her for being a fatty's mother. This triggered Daniel, who was just silently listening. He called the group out, which pissed Zach off. Zach then challenged Daniel to a fight, causing a crowd to form inside and outside the class. Zach made a move to punch Daniel, but the silent blonde guy in the class caught his arm. Zach shrugged the guy off and threw another punch at Daniel, who easily dodged his fist. Zach then continued on throwing punches, and Daniel kept on dodging all of them. This went on, and Daniel knew this would never end. So, using the technique Logan used, he punched Zach, and the latter immediately dropped to the ground. The news about Zach losing to Daniel spread around the whole school, and the popular guys found out about it, piquing their interest. At night, Zach's group at school was strolling around. They decided to call Jiho, the loser of the school that they would always bully, to torture him again. Jiho ran as fast as he could to get to the guys faster, and when he arrived, the trio told him to steal a charger from the convenience store Hyung-suk was working at. He stole one charger, but Hyung-suk managed to stop him. That was until the trio and the lady arrived. The trio made the two losers fight each other with the promise that if Jiho won, they'd leave him alone. Desperate to finally be free from his bullies, Jiho started throwing weak punches at Hyung-suk, who just accepted them. That was until a tattooed guy named Vasco came and stopped the trio from bullying the two any further. The next day, Daniel went to the cafeteria during lunchtime and approached Jiho with a friendly smile. Beside him was Zoe, who was following Daniel around again. Daniel then ate with Jiho, oblivious to the attention he was getting just by sitting with the loser of the school. A guy wearing a cap and shades then approached Zach, who was watching Daniel, and mocked Zach for losing to Daniel. Meanwhile, Daniel saw Vasco and happily greeted him before he could even remember that Vasco only recognized Hyung-suk and not Daniel. Vasco assumed that Daniel was picking a fight, so he approached him, putting his hand on Daniel's shoulder and putting pressure on it. Daniel winced in pain, but he still smiled at Vasco and easily pulled Vasco's hand off his shoulder. This shocked the students in Vasco's group, as Vasco is known for being the strongest in the school. One of Vasco's friends stepped in before things escalated and decided to back down for now, seeing as the new guy is really strong. Everyone in the room was shocked at what happened, and everyone was impressed by Daniel. Within just a few days of attending the school, Daniel became one of the most popular students in the school. Most of the students have no clue about the deepest secret Daniel is hiding. And that is the fact that he has two bodies and is living a double life. In the morning, he's a handsome, cool guy who can beat anyone who dares try to fight him. But when the sun sets, he turns into a pushover fat guy who one can easily belittle.